Welcome to the Just Us podcast with Pastors Aaron and Diane. In the podcast, we have conversations about faith, family, freedom, and fun. Be sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're joining us on so you don't miss anything we share. So let's jump into today's podcast.
All right. Welcome to the latest episode, the latest podcast of Just Us, which is you and I having conversations about things like faith, family, freedom, and even some fun.
That's right. You got to have fun in your life.
Yeah, and so today we thought we would talk about something that is really prevalent this week is because
Very true.
A milestone.
It is.
We are celebrating 30 years of being married to each other. Right?
Yeah.
So 30 years of marriage.
30 years of
week,
marriage this
which
week. Yes.
Is in our eyes, it's a big accomplishment. I think the average marriage lasts like 8 years. So
yeah.
we beat that by 3 times ish.
Ish.
Anyways,
yeah.
So we are excited about that, and so what we thought we would do is we asked ourselves. We said self. After 30 years of marriage, what have we learned that maybe we could share with you?
Yeah,
that
for
will
those that
help
are,
you?
whether you're newly married or been married for a little while, or even as long
Wanna
as
be
we
married.
are, or want to be married. Yeah, some
Any
things
of that.
that we've learned through challenges and trials, and through being led by the Spirit of God. And I'll be honest with you, I wish we had more of that help earlier on in ours.
And look at our shirts.
I know. Can you read them?
Anyways, so what we did was we asked the question, what have we learned after 30 years of marriage?
Yeah, after 30 years of marriage.
So you came up with your top answers.
I did.
Came up with mine.
I did. You did.
And so I'll start with you. The first thing that you said, and you can just elaborate, and you can ask me. And so
okay.
The first thing that you said, when I said, what have you learned after 30 years of marriage? And you said that communication is the key. It's the key.
It's the key to every relationship, but especially marriage. It's the thing that allows you to understand, know, and even if you don't, be able to communicate, be able to have an opportunity to hear the other's heart, what their thoughts are, even the feelings that they have about certain things. It's good to communicate about these things because you can't just assume things, especially in any relationship, but especially marriage. You have to have that communication so that you know that what each other is thinking, feeling, and it really helps to get a better understanding. One thing we have learned through communication is that I have to communicate so that it's understandable for him, not because of the way I communicate, but the way that he would hear me or the way that he receives it. Let's just say it that way. So I've had to work on the way that I communicate so that it may not come across too passionate or too offensive or in a tone. And I do believe that that's important. I mean, because you can say something, and you can say it in different tones, and it actually means two totally different things, which is interesting. But you want to make sure your heart is being conveyed so that you're heard and that they're hearing the right thing so that any kind of problem or trial or issue can be worked out. Because ultimately, you always want resolve. Don't you agree?
Yeah, because your communication, you do a really good job of communicating.
Well, I appreciate that.
I can walk up on stage and talk to a bunch of people easier than I can sit down and talk.
Yes, that's true.
But you're really good communicating in a one-on-one, much better than me. But it's interesting because your communication is pretty raw. It's pretty no holds barred. It's just, and mine's more processed.
That's a good word, processed.
And you'll say something, I got to process it a little bit. And it's just interesting, like you said, you got to think a little bit the way the person's going to hear it, respond to it.
Yes.
Just because you said it doesn't mean you're communicating.
No, because we can say things in just so many different ways that it sounds like we may not care or it doesn't matter what the other person thinks or hears. And it does. It really does matter what the other person thinks and hears. but it matters that you're heard. So I think ultimately communications allows everyone to be heard, and we want to be heard in the right way. So again, that we can bring resolve.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So that was my top one.
All right.
So your top one, as we've discussed, was the fact that it takes intentionality in the things that you do in a marriage or in a relationship. You want to expound on that?
Yeah, I thought I'd throw a big word out there.
Okay, thanks.
Intentionality.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, no, what I mean
communication's
is
a pretty big word, too.
Whether it's true. Whether it's communication or any other part of marriage, what I meant by intentionality is it takes, you've heard it say it takes work, marriage is work,
Yes.
and it is. But sometimes when you hear like marriage is work, it's like, oh, dear Lord. Well, it takes intentionality. In other words, you don't have a good marriage, you don't have better communication, you don't have better anything in your marriage without intentionality. And I for whatever reason, I used to have a really just bad.
Tell me, how did you used to think?
Bad mentality on that. I don't know where it came from, but anyways, I just always. And you've even said this to me before, like, why do you always think things will just work out? And I don't know why, but I just used to think it'll just work out. Like you'll ask me like, why didn't that bother you? I'm like, it's gonna work out.
Okay,
I mean,
but
there's
think
probably
about
some
that.
good
You
to
just
that.
said marriage is work, and work is going to take things that you have to do, so it doesn't just work out. So you have to put
It
something
took me
in
30
it.
years to learn this.
It has
No,
to be
really,
something that you do, you know.
And it's
make
sowing
it
and
work.
reaping, I guess. You know, you
that's
sow,
really good.
you put
Yeah.
effort in, and you put energy
Invest
in.
into it
Whether
and-
it's serving, communicating, whatever.
Right.
Under the marriage like topic. One thing I've learned is it takes intentionality.
Yeah.
Certain areas don't get better unless you're intentional, and I'm intentional.
Absolutely.
And so really, if you're intentional, then you have a lot to say in the harvest or the outcome or the good or the bad of the marriage situation.
Yeah.
So to me, even in communication, you got to be intentional. to
Intentional
communicate.
about how you communicate, when
Yeah.
you communicate. That is something I probably should have mentioned. There are better times than not times to communicate about certain things. Like, it may not be the best time to talk about paying the bills if you're, at the grocery store and you're focusing on something else. That's probably not the best analogy.
Or it's
but
the
when you're
fourth quarter of the ball game
or the
and-
fourth, that's a better
on the line.
analogy. Yes.
It's not the time to practice
Or maybe that is
intentionality.
the better time, and you just kind of slip it in there and say,
Yeah.
"But I did tell you." No,
Yeah.
that's bad advice. Don't take
Right.
that.
So here's your second one.
Okay, my
The
second
first
one.
was you said you've learned communication is the key.
Yeah.
And then the second one you said you need to pick your battles, the hard truths. What?
I have learned
Does that mean for
over
our
30
listeners?
years because I'm someone who really desires to, if there's a problem, let's fix it. Let's do it now. Let's get it done. Not without, like, obviously process or thinking, but if something is happening, I think learning through what the word says is I never want to give the devil a foothold in anything. So I want to try to address things when they happen, and maybe not always when your feelings and emotions are too escalated or heated or whatever, but really never letting it just continue to go. Now, have I always been great at that? Absolutely not. But I have learned as I've matured is that it's better to really, pick your battles. Pick the time that it's better to communicate something or better to deal with something. And the hard truths, like I have to be prepared for the hard truth. Like, because if I want to communicate and I want to do it well and I want to do this in a way that is beneficial to our relationship, there's some truths that are hard sometimes and you have to hear them. And it's not always easy, but it's necessary and beneficial. So just picking the right times, or even certain things, like sometimes, and my family will definitely agree, sometimes I can get a little nitpicky about things because it's just like I'm just so stuck on the fact that I never want to be known as phony, false, and things like that. So I'm like, nuh-uh, and I might have misunderstood something. So I have to keep that in my mind, like, is this really worth the battle of talking about, okay, somebody didn't do something like put something in the dishwasher right or whatever. Is that really a battle? I've already made communication. You know what I mean? Like, those are minimal things, but it's those little things in a relationship that actually grow into bigger things. So it's like, I got to pick my battles. Is this the right time to discuss something, or would there be a better time? And then the hard truths of, if I'm willing to go into that battle, I got to realize I'm going to have to face hard truths, or the person that I'm having that conversation with is going to have to face it, which would be you.
That's good, though. Good.
It was a learning process.
Sure.
I appreciate the learning process, but once you learn something, you have to apply it, and that's not the easiest part. So
Well, those are good.
So your second one was just talking about serving each other's needs.
Mm-hmm.
So can you expound on the fact that you need to serve my needs continuously 24/7? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we've learned that men and women have different needs.
We do have
and they're
different
real
needs.
needs.
Yeah, they
are. When your greatest need is for love, that's a legit need. It's like food and water.
Yeah.
For a man,
It's good.
respect.
Good life
It's
to you.
real. It's
Yeah.
like food and water. You need it. And so it's something I've learned that my job, you have needs, I have needs, and my job, whether you're being wonderful or not that day, my job,
It's true.
my responsibility, I guess I should say, is to serve those needs.
Yeah.
No one ever told us that, And
That's
so
what I mean. Like, I wish this was
sometimes
stuff
like, well, they're
that
needy.
we
Well,
had
we
had
all have
early on.
needs, but it's my responsibility. And a lot of couples get in trouble because someone's not serving a need.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to find the need met
Somewhere
with
else.
someone or something else.
Yeah.
And so that was news to me. I've learned that it's my responsibility for your needs to be met, whether those are emotional, whether those are material, whatever those are. That's
Yeah.
my responsibility to serve those needs. Learning to serve your spouse, like you've said this before. Like a lot of times, I'll jump in and help do something in the house, dishes or whatever, and you appreciate it, but that's not one of your greatest needs.
Right.
Although
I do appreciate
right.
it.
So,
Absolutely.
so it's
yeah.
not just about, hey, I took out the garbage or I washed the dishes. We help do that, but the real needs we're to help serve those. It's my responsibility to meet those needs.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That's
So,
a good one. That's
yeah.
a good one.
So the third on our list, well, we have five.
interesting.
And the
Yeah.
third on our list, I don't know if these are in rank in the file, but we both said the same thing.
Yeah.
So we just maybe we'll elaborate on it together.
Right.
And this is something whenever we're working with
Couples.
a couple
Premarital
or
counselings.
marriage counseling, either way,
Marriage, yeah.
we always tell them this, that the goal of marriage is oneness.
Oneness.
And once again, you probably heard us talk before. Nobody taught us this. When we found this out and discovered that the whole goal of us being married, you go all the way back to the book of Genesis.
That's right.
They became one
flesh.
Mm-hmm. And you leave and cleave, and oneness is the goal. What's the goal of your marriage? Ongoing, whether you've been married 4 months, 4 years, 40 years, whatever.
True.
The goal was oneness.
Yeah. Yeah, and that completes. Like that makes it a complete.
Yeah. And in that, like I've told you this before, I didn't realize we were to be one in all those areas.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't realize like the goal was oneness, not just physically, but the goal of oneness spiritually, the goal. And I think if you think about it, that's
Spirit, soul, and
why
body.
the
Thank
world, the enemy, works so hard for duplicity or division.
Yeah.
If it's not one and it's divided. And that doesn't mean you have to think exactly alike, because we're really different.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we have commonalities.
right.
But we are different people.
and you build commonalities, but you're different people.
Yeah.
But oneness, it always comes back to that. Making things one, making things in the open, bringing
Yes.
things to,
Yeah.
to oneness. And that sounds good because it's a goal, but that's not easy.
No.
Because we have wills, we have
We have
desires,
different thoughts, we have different
personalities,
desires, different
our
personalities.
own feelings, and
But I've noticed in that there are so many things that I've learned from you in like the way that you are that has helped me. And there are so many things I believe, hopefully, that you've learned
There's so
that
many
I
lot
am,
here.
that I am, that helps you. So, like, you help me to stay on track better, be a better planner, be a better leader. I help you to have more compassion, be more nurturing, more thoughtful of things. And that's where oneness completes or makes it whole. So I think that's really important. Like, you may not be the total opposites, but there's always a part of you when God gives you the right person or the person that's for you. You're not perfect people, but you'll be perfect together because of what he's joined together, what he's called together, what he's brought together. And the whole point of oneness is so that it's not divided, because when your oneness is brought together, there's a purpose behind the oneness. And out of that purpose for you to be fruitful, multiply, do the things that God wants you to do. And that's not just have children, but to be fruitful and multiply in the gifts and the callings that he's called you to be as one, so that you can actually impact many. And I think that's always something that's very beneficial to know.
Yeah, even times when we've had disagreements or little conversations.
Spats.
I think one thing we always do, even if we don't want to, sometimes we don't want to, is come back to the oneness thing and work it out or get back on the same page.
Well, and another thing that some of you may have heard us say this in different things, like I came from a broken home. He came from a home that's still thriving, like your parents, 60 years now? 60 plus?
60
going
years,
on 60 plus years that have been married. And so there are things that, challenge us in different ways. So there are times that we talk about different things, but when we felt like what God brought us together and we became one, is we made a decision and a pact that no matter what, if this was God because we believed it was God, then we're not going to let something else destroy it. So our pact or our decision was that divorce is not an option for us. Now, we're not criticizing anybody who has gotten a divorce or situations or circumstances of people that, are in this kind of things, but that is just something that God ministered to us. And so that's what I feel like Pastor Aaron is sharing, is the fact that we always come to a resolve of the fact, no matter what, you're stuck with each other. And it's not a bad thing.
I'm happy to be stuck with you. From the theologian Huey Lewis. There.
Throw that in there. But anyway, I'm just saying, so I think that's an important thing too, because a lot of people just think it's a contract that you go into, and when in God's eyes it's a covenant. It's something that's never to be broken.
Covenant means to tear.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's what it means.
Okay, thank you.
To cut, actually, is what it means.
Yes. No,
all right, so we got two more. Let's get through these, but those are good. That's good. Your next one was knowing the importance of apologizing or extending forgiveness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you saying that because you've had to practice that a lot with me?
I have, and you've had to practice it with me also. Yeah, I do think that's important. And then sometimes, especially, I'm not right all the time, he's not right all the time. And there are just things that when you feel very strong about something, you feel like I feel like I have to state my case. Not because I want to prove that I'm right, but just so that you hear me or that I'm heard, so that you understand me. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times when we get in our spats or our fusses or whatever, we have to remember that, forgive. I think it's, and this is going to sound really strange, but I feel like it's easier for me to forgive you first than it is sometimes to apologize. But I don't not apologize. I apologize, but I also want you to hear me, before I do. But if something's said that you did, I'm like, yeah, I forgive that, because I know you're either reacting out of an emotion or irritation or frustration. We're all human. So the forgiveness part comes so much easier for some reason to me than I realized. And then the apology is that I can't apologize, and I've said this before, I won't apologize for how I feel, but I will apologize for how I delivered it or how it made you feel. But I won't apologize for how I feel, even though my feelings are real. They may not always be right. I just want to be heard. So if you're a lady out there and you understand this, back me up on it. And men, that would be a good thing to understand.
Well, that's good. That's good.
So
you actually said that to me yesterday.
We won't go there.
All right.
So, okay. And yours is on the essence of how we think, or a thought pattern. So kind of tell me what you mean. Thinking differently is okay.
Thinking different's
is what
okay. And maybe it's not just thinking, it's being different is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once again, I know I'm going to sound really selfish, but I think I just always thought, well, why don't you think the way I think? Why don't you look at it the way I look at it?
Because that was always just your world?
I don't know, but I realized not everyone thinks like me or should think like me.
Right, absolutely.
Especially you. And so we're different. Even though oneness is the goal, we're different. And different is good. I don't think you should be, if you're the same, you don't need each other. How boring would we be? Yeah, but.
I mean, if we had, everything was the same. There's no spice.
Right, so what I'm not, you are, and what you aren't, I am.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
your differences should be celebrated. Your differences should become your strengths, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And that's something I've learned.
But I think that teaches us understanding. When we're different, it teaches us to be able to understand each other and others that may not think the same way that we do. So give people an opportunity for that too.
Right.
So.
All right, here's the last one.
The
We each
final
had 5.
ones.
So you said communication is always the key.
Yep.
You said you should pick your battles.
Yes.
You said oneness
is
is
the
the goal.
goal.
And then you said you have to forgive
And apologize.
and apologize. And your last one is you just got to be willing to confront
the
issues.
You have to be willing to confront the issues. Like, what you don't confront will continue. So I've learned that the hard way, because I was never growing up a confrontational person because of fear. I'm not a confrontational person. I just want to deal with the issues so our relationship can be better. Because I'm thinking, why would we allow the enemy to cause a problem and destroy our relationship, whether it's our marriage or a friend, by not confronting the issue? Because what you do is you suppress, and you suppress, and then something will trigger you, and then you blow up, and then it's like, where in the world did that come from? So if you let things go, which I don't believe that, well, the Bible even talks about you're not supposed to let things go. You're supposed to address those things. And then if they don't,
Nothing ever changes.
nothing ever changes in your life if you don't confront those issues. And it's not easy to confront issues, but here's what I think. If I'm willing to confront the issue with you, that shows that I love you, because I care enough for us to want to be better. And that's how I feel. Now, I'm not saying I'm right all the time. I'm not saying, delivery has a lot to do with confronting, making sure you're saying it in a way that, doesn't attack somebody. But I just really feel that's important in a relationship. I mean, when you genuinely love people, you're willing to go the places that are tough, not just the places that are easy.
Yeah. That's a good one, though.
So.
And you do actually good at that.
Thanks.
I'm not always the best at that.
But see, we're one, so
right.
you learn from me and I learn from
Okay.
you, right? So we'll wrap it up with yours, too, and get to
Okay.
your last one. But you talked about it takes intentionality, which is excellent. I think that's wonderful. Serving each other's needs, so important in a relationship. Oneness is the goal, too. Also, thinking differently is okay. And finally, you talked about this, and it's one of both of our favorite things, but I love that you made mention of it, is making memories.
Yeah. Memories to me are they're the snapshots in your mind
Yep.
that create the warm and fuzzies on your heart, right? So even in life, even in how we do church, but especially in your family, you don't want to overplan because you want organic things to happen. But you got to provide opportunities for memories to be made.
Absolutely. Aaron's a planner. That's why I said that.
That's
There's nothing
so
wrong with
important, those memories. Like with our family, it's funny, our girls, they're not kids anymore, but every once in a while they'll want to do something that I think sometimes we think,
why?
yeah, and it's because there have been memories built around that.
We've always done that with them.
And so,
yeah.
For us, those are important things because church life is busy, ministry life is busy, but even in our life, just memories. And memories don't have to be expensive. They just have to be.
No.
They just have to be consistent.
Well, I even say, like, Aaron hates to have to turn around or ask for directions.
I think we talked about this on the podcast before.
But anyway, and he'll be like, oh. And I'm like, don't get upset at that. We're making a memory. We can laugh about this. That's something that we can talk about later on. Like, let's observe something that if you went the wrong way, maybe there was something we were supposed to see, and we're making a memory out of it. So you try to flip that.
We love to, in the fall, drive to the mountains around here. We
see the
just got back from vacation at the beach.
My happy
we always
place.
take in a Steelers camp. We like to go to Pittsburgh.
Right.
Just stuff.
Things together as a family.
Here's what I believe. When you are intentional, back to the first one, it makes memories and it creates momentum in your relationship. So even in your marriage, not just your family, but even in your marriage, things that create good moments. Sometimes with me, that's sitting around the campfire out back or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
Those create memories. And that's important to do because that's, to me, that's building history. That's building life. So,
well, and in these things, like we said, we don't know it all. We don't have the perfect life or the perfect marriage, but I feel like when God brings something together, he creates a perfect union. So in that, I just think about, it's not maybe a lot of spiritual things that you heard today, but it's relational, and Jesus is relational, and he's real with you, and you should be real with your spouse or anybody that you're in a relationship with. So hopefully those were some things that taught you about relationship, and then how long it can last, and it's worth the work. So
Here's the 30 years.
30 years, baby.
All right. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and
We hope you had a good time today.
yeah, hopefully that helps.
Thanks for letting us share our heart. We want to make sure that you continue to join us with justuswv.com. Make sure you subscribe, comment, and
Share.
like us.
Yeah,
Yes, share it with
100%.
someone that maybe you feel like this would be great to kind of help somebody. But we're just so appreciative of you guys joining us, and we're happy to do it. So thank you guys.
Thank
See
you
you
guys.
soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. There will be a new podcast every other Wednesday, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything we share. Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you for the next episode of the Just Us podcast.